Alright, I'm trying something out in this one, so bear with me in case the video ends up not as well as the other ones, as low as my attempted qualities usually are. But I changed the recording format because it was recording in MP4, and I think that's why it was taking so long to upload. Like a normal video would take like 2+ hours, and it used to take like 15 minutes. And I changed it at one point, and then it started doing that, and I never remembered to switch it back. So hopefully this works, and this will take way shorter to upload. But it's all about the new chapter. This was a really like it wasn't like a super hype chapter, but I really liked the tone of it. I actually really enjoyed the opening portions. I liked seeing Percival just going around doing stuff, and that's one of the things I'm most excited for early in the series is just Percival exploring, because I like this is a really good example panel of just Nakaba doing a really nice artistic layout of the land. And like when you have a lot of characters doing stuff in series like this, you can have them come across like, something like this, like some really cool landscapes, some really cool environment, maybe like a really cool building or architecture or whatever. And when you live in a world like these and there's crazy stuff all over the place, like there's that, we just saw in a previous chapter the giant dragon spine and skull. And so it's not like those are everywhere, but there's a lot of crazy, like cool, just general areas, terrains, locations in Britannia in a lot of series. And so like if they don't end up getting, like sometimes when the characters don't get super hyped, it can just it'll pull me down a little bit, because I'm liking that Percival has the same energy as I do, at least, because I don't think a lot of people have the same amount of just general hype when it comes to just looking at visual landscapes and stuff. That's probably one of the reasons I like Build King, just on the surface levels. I really like the just the weird layouts and environments and constructs and stuff. So I'm very happy to see Percival enjoying himself, just going around and coming across something that would look really cool in real life. You have a mountain that looks like it was just scoop, like literally it looks like somebody took like a big ice cream scoop, just slammed like right against this mountain and then poked a hole through it. I was actually looking at this because I buy the chapters off of the app that they are officially released from, but they're in Japanese. It's my way of helping support the official release for anything I can that isn't like something that has like something like anything on Viz as part of the subscription service, where even if I peek at like spoilers or like fan translations, I'm still paying for the official, so I don't really mind as much. But I don't, they don't have that for Kodansha or anything, so I just buy them off the app. Plus, it lets me peek at the chapter immediately as they get released. And I was looking at this and like thinking, now entirely, what is this? Like just the environment itself, like this like entire just like biome. I don't really know what I would really want to call this, other than just a like cool little selective terrain of what they call it, I think, Echo Gorge. Because anything in this series, I'm curious to know if it's from Seven Deadly, like not if it's from Seven Deadly Sins, because obviously Seven Deadly Sins is connected to the world. But like anytime a character is introduced, I'm like, is this like a previous character that maybe is like really old and is passed and come forward? Like anytime we saw any fairies or giants, I was like, okay, well, what's going to be the deal with this character? Is this character maybe somehow related to a previous character, or is it a character that's previously known? I know, like, we've seen people like Arthur and Merlin shown in like their flashbacks when they're talking about Camelot, but I don't think otherwise we've seen any like direct Seven Deadly Sins character showing up, at least yet. I mean, it's going to happen, obviously, but I'm always so curious of like, well, what is something that kind of carried over? Like obviously with the big battles and stuff that happen, you're gonna have a lot of terrain damage. So it's like, is this maybe the reason this mountain looks like this is from an attack of a character? Because I'm looking at like the big boulders, and the first thing I think of is Galen when he was playing golf, and he was hitting those big ass boulders all the way at Jericho when she was carrying Bon. Was there a third person? I don't entirely remember off the top of my head, because she hadn't ran into Eskimor yet, but it's like, oh, I want to go back and look, because it's like, is this something that's like obviously referencing an event from Seven Deadly Sins? Like if we see those mountains that, remember Galen when he went to his was it Critical Over, I think it was called, wasn't that his move was Critical Strike? I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since I've read those chapters, but when he went for that big attack, and then like you see the shock wave just completely cleaved off the tops of those mountains nearby. like seeing like those, if we just came across and someone's like, why do those mountains look like that? Because they don't look like plateaus, but obviously like the top, you think that those are plateaus somehow, but you'd know that it's something obviously that you would have more context to if you read the other series. And that's one of the things I really like about people doing continuations of their previous works, because it's cool like if they want to start something completely new. But I really like that when you have authors like this and they expand upon the worlds that they already have, because it's fun. And on top of that, like I said, like if we run into something that is possibly influenced by an event in Seven Deadly Sins, it makes me want to go back and reread those parts in Seven Deadly Sins. And plus, if there's like a new person that hasn't read Seven Deadly Sins and maybe is reading Four Knights of the Apocalypse and wants to get the context for stuff like this, they can go back and read it. So it's like a good double incentive for anybody reading the series if they, can go back to check out Seven Deadly Sins. Like I said, I wasn't a huge fan on like I'd say the second half of the last arc. I got really frustrated with some of the parts, but I still like Seven Deadly Sins overall. And I was very happy that Four Knights of the Apocalypse was announced, because it means that the world, like the Seven Deadly Sins world, and I don't know if Nakaba is going to change it something else. Like Mishima just calls like his collective series Mishima World. Maybe Nakaba will call it something like that too, but for him. But it makes me a lot happier knowing that like the world that these characters live in didn't end on like the sour note that I think the Demon King left. So instead, it was just kind of like a villain that just was not as cool as like a lot of people thought he was going to be. And then it's, to a continuation, to more stuff. But at the same time, it's going to involve, but who knows to what degree, the older characters, so they can still have some spotlight, still get some moments. People can still see them and how they're progressing and doing nowadays. And I do genuinely really like that. I think that's a really fun aspect of doing continuations, especially like if you have something like I said, that ended on like not on a good note, but then you can just expand it. Because like I said, I've already had a lot of fun with Four Knights of the Apocalypse. I've liked it. I liked the, the one-shots when you had like Bond's son and stuff. And it really makes up for, also, just as a side thing, it makes up for potentially one of my biggest griefs with Seven Deadly Sins. One of my biggest things overall in the whole series was the fact that Endura was introduced and never really used beyond its initial time. Like, we had the flashbacks when we saw people use them, but it's like we never saw anybody use it again. And then the Endura that we did see, that big, cool, multi-headed one, got beaten relatively easy. Like, they just wailed on it, like, after, like, as soon as, like, the main characters got there, which was always, to me, upsetting, because I really wanted to see the Endura, and I was so hyped to see, like, just, I love the concept of them. I like that these high-level demons that at some point they've just decided that they had to sacrifice their hearts and their sanity and stuff in order to become this ultimate version of themselves, and then just forever roamed the underworld. And I always loved that concept. I always thought that was a really cool, just, all-in trump card that some of the bigger people had. And I was like, well, maybe that could be the thing that, like, the Demon King has, because he could be immortal, and then maybe, like, his thing, because he could be Endura, but retained his sanity, which would make sense of why he's so much more powerful than the other demons and stuff. Or that could have been Meliodas' thing, because Meliodas was immortal for a while, so he should have been able just to rip his heart out and destroy him, and they would regenerate, I would assume. But either way, getting back to the chapter, that was just a small rant I had, because, like I said, I've been very happy that Seven Deadly Sins is getting put back on like a better pathway after its unfortunate, like, at least in my opinion, derailment near the end. But where Four Knights of the Apocalypse is really getting things back and moving. It's getting things on a better note, and it's making me enjoy the series again overall a lot more. Because, like I said, it gives stuff from the previous series a lot more value if you have, like, something that's tied in. Like if this Echo Gorge is somehow related to an event that happened in Seven Deadly Sins. Like I said, it doesn't have to. But if Nakaba uses it for other events, it can still work. But, like, the chapter begins. I'll try and skim through, like, the first parts. Luckily, I had a good amount to talk about. So the first parts that were like super quick. The first parts with like Sin, Donnie, and Percival, when they're just talking, they're hungry. That, like, Percival wants to have a competition to see who can catch, like, the biggest and best food. And I like when he runs off with his bow and arrow, and Donnie, like, ends up, he's like, hey, hold on a second, takes him. And it's like, Percival, he doesn't need a bow and arrow. Because the thing is, he's very fast. It's not like I already know, like, Seven Deadly Sins and stuff, and, like, characters like Percival, like, Well, suddenly, since characters obviously are way faster than an Arrow, like we've seen people dodge lightning and stuff, so Percival will be up there anyway. But like Percival already, I think he should be fine in speed. Like we saw him outrun a horse with a head start. He should be able to, like, if he saw a boar or something, he just tackles it, just sprints head on, darts into it, and he could probably honestly kill it from the initial impact of just landing into it at high speeds with, like, as physically strong as he is, and he's got his magic too, so he should be fine. But we see all these boulders, and he goes and climbs up. And again, I want to go back and look at Seven Sins, because I don't know if this is from Seven Sins reference of this gorge. If it is, and you know, please tell me, because I actually really want to know if this ties to the previous story, or if this is a new concept, or at least I guess not a concept, a new location. Either way, I'm fine with it. I think it's cool. I really like the design. It's just a general nice way at like displaying the land and just having a good character moment for Percival. But while he's talking and just doing his thing, having fun, you have Donnie and Sin, who runs into this big nun. And I saw a coloring of the nun. I don't think it was official. I think it was just somebody on Twitter of, like, the nun being blonde. And, like, I immediately thought that was, what's her name, Matrona? Was she blonde? I'm actually trying to think. I think she was blonde. I'm literally Googling it in the middle of this. But I was like, maybe they're related somehow? Yeah, she's blonde. So maybe she's related, and it would make sense of why this nun is practicing a more human kind of style of religion, because she's worshiping a goddess. And then Donnie's even like, it's weird that, was it Donnie or was it Sin? Oh, it was Sin. He's like, it's weird that you're worshiping the goddesses and not Mother Earth. And we didn't get an explanation on that because it got cut out. Like, her name is Dolores, which again is close to was it Dolor? I'm trying to remember exactly how it's pronounced. See, like, again, like, I like the fact that I have to go back and think about, or go back and, like, think about characters and events from the series if I want to try and piece certain things that are laid out in this one. I like that. Even if Seven Deadly Sins, like, again, at the end, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I like that it has reread value just based off of reading Four Knights of the Apocalypse. Like, it adds on so much value, just in general. And like I said, I'm a fan of that. But the only thing that would be kind of confusing is, like, obviously it's only been 16 or so years, and giants age way slower, so, like, it would be weird to connect this girl to Matrona unless it's, like, she aged differently, because, like, Matrona married a guy, like, or a human guy, and so it'd be like, well, maybe that guy and you know, and her somehow hooked up, and then you have this weird half human, half giant. I don't know. I'm just trying to, like, think about it right now, unless this is a brand new giant, and then you get some fairies showing up. I don't care about the fairies. The fairies, when I was thinking about it, that at the first, I was like, well, maybe these are fairies related to somebody. Actually, you know what? I don't care about these guys, but, like, the giant has some form, like, she has a clear layer of importance to her, but she ends up explaining about the Echo Gorge, and, like, it used to be a really nice, beautiful land populated by the fairies and giants, and now it's just awful. And then once Donnie's like, oh, it's hell in there, and then you see over and paneled over to it, there's, like, rabid rabbits, just monster rabbits, like trees with faces on it, and they're going after Percival, and Percival's just, he's laying them out. He's completely demolishing them, putting the works on them, and just beating their asses. And that's what I was saying. Like, Percival may not be strong in comparison to, like, big people in the series, at least as of right now. We don't know where he kind of, like, if you put him in Seven Deadly Sins and just said fight until you can't fight anymore, or at least, like, put him in a gauntlet style, I think is the better way to describe it. Put him in, like, a gauntlet, and he had to 1v1 somebody until he found out, like, the person he can't beat. Like, that would be kind of like a gauge of, like, okay, how strong is he? But at the same time, none of that is going to really matter in comparison to random monsters. Like, if he couldn't beat random monsters, he'd be, like, so weak for a main character this early in comparison to, like, the world he's in and stuff. But, like, we already knew that he's very physically strong and stuff, and he's got a very sturdy body, he's fast, he's got magic and stuff, so these guys should be no problem to him. And then after that, he ends up coming across this, like, mushroom house. I actually really like the mushroom house. I like the, like, I wish I could have fit it in the thumbnail better. I already made my thumbnail, but it's like, you have the general mushroom house, and then under it, like, in the hillside, there's a door. So that means there's more parts of the house, like a basement underneath it, maybe like a storage area, and it maybe goes, like, into the mountain, or there's, like, maybe some underground caverns or something that it connects to. I don't know. I just like the general design. mentioned that in the first chapter when I talked about the cool god's finger, kind of like the way like where Percival and his grandfather had their base. I really liked that, just in theory. It got my Minecraft like house planning memories just kick fired back up. Like when you're just looking for the perfect place to build a cool base and trying to imagine what your base is going to look like. We come across this guy, and he's like talking about doing experiments on this little fairy, and Percival shows up, and there's blood coming out of the guy's mouth, and I'm wondering if this potentially is going to be revealed as like the child of Zeldris and Geldra. I don't remember if it's Geldra or Gelda, because there's obviously blood. He's got the black hair. He's got like a wicked, dark-looking kind of like look to him, and I think the fact he has a hat on is probably covering up like a distinctive, main character. Maybe not main character, but important character hairstyle. I would guess, similar to what Percival's doing, obviously with his hat. I mean, he's not doing it on purpose, he's just wearing his helmet, but you know what I mean. The second this guy takes off his hat, I imagine it puffs up into, like, some crazy anime hairstyle. But when Percival lets this guy get away, we find a little bit more information on him when the fairies and the giants are talking about him. They even call him a demon, so I think, personally, at least as of right now, if it's somebody connected to a previous character, my guess is Zeldris and Gelda's kid. But if not, I'm hoping he's just some random kid, and he's like a new character, a new face. I would be very happy, though, if he was, in fact, the vampire demon child of these guys. And they call him Nasiens. I don't know if I've ever heard that word before. I don't know if it's a name or if it is, it just means something. I Googled it, and it said Nightbringer. So, and it said, I'm actually looking at this right now. It says, I just Googled it. It says, named as one of the 24 knights of King Arthur's court. So possibly, I might have to mull this over. But he's got, like, when he had blood in his mouth at one point, you see him lick over the blood, and then you see him kind of, like, ominously standing over Percival with, like, these, like, shadowy stuff coming on. They call him, like, the mad herbalist. My guess is that he is Zeldris' son. He's a vampire demon. But I could be wrong. He could just be some crazy-ass dude. We'll see. I mean, he's actually got the collar popped up similar to Zeldris too, but that might just be a coincidence. I don't know. Either way, comment below. Tell me your thoughts are about this. I'm going to upload this right now, and hopefully it goes quick and it's not going to be like 2 hours, but we'll see. Solid chapter. I thought it was pretty good, especially because it, like, for the most part, it didn't have a lot of events happen. Like, it was more of a setup chapter, but it was the right kind of setup chapter. Like, it gave character stuff, obviously, for Percival. You got to have some new characters introduced, and you hyped up a new character on top of that who might be related to an older character. Who knows? Either way, thumbs up the video, friend, like button, subscribe button, check out my other videos. Other than that, I appreciate everyone's already subscribed. Thank you all for listening.